Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. Well, this is the image of the USS Enterprise warship, which was deployed in the Bay of Bengal in 1971. Well, this was a clear show of force ordered by the then US President Richard Nixon with advice from National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger. Well, documents that were later declassified in 2011 showed that the US believed India was the aggressor in the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War and that there were in fact orders to target the Indian Army in 1971. The documents also showed that 3 battalions of Marines were kept on standby too, and that orders had been given to target the Indian Army. Since then, in the past 50 plus years, sense has prevailed and India and the US have become collaborators when it comes to defense and national security. Well, this is a picture of today from Singapore, where Defense Minister of India Rajnath Singh met US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth during the 12th ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting. India and US have today signed a framework agreement to expand defense cooperation over the next 10 years. The 2025 framework marks a new chapter to further transform the partnership over the next 10 years. It is intended to provide a unified vision and policy direction to deepen defense cooperation. Well, through a post on X, Raksha Mantri exuded confidence that the framework will provide policy direction to the entire spectrum of the India-US defense relationship. It is a signal of our growing strategic convergence and will herald a new decade of partnership. Defense will remain as the major pillar of our bilateral relations. Our partnership is critical for ensuring a free, open and rule-bound Indo-Pacific region. In a post, Mr. Pete Hegseth stated that the framework advances the bilateral defense partnership, a cornerstone for regional stability and deterrence. He said, "We are enhancing our coordination, info sharing and tech cooperation. Our defense ties have never been stronger," was the message. One significant feature of the document is the military exercises. The Indian Army and US Army participate in a yearly joint military exercise. The 2025 Yudh Abhyas was held at Fort Wainwright in Alaska. This year, the 2-week exercise brought together India's Madras Regiment and US Army's Arctic Wolves Brigade to rehearse complex tactical drills from heliborne and mountain warfare to drone operations and information warfare, showcasing the growing interoperability and trust between the two forces. Vajra Prahar is a joint special forces exercise between India and the United States designed to enhance interoperability in counter-terrorism and high-altitude warfare. The latest edition is taking place at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington, USA. The exercise involves India's Para Special Forces and the US Army Special Forces Group, known as the Green Berets. The focus is on high-altitude operations, small team tactics, reconnaissance and joint mission planning in complex terrain. Vajra Prahar builds on shared experiences in combating terror threats and improving tactical coordination. Over the years, it has become a key platform to strengthen India-US special operations cooperation and deepen military trust. The second key feature of this document will be information sharing. During military operations and anti-terror operations, information sharing becomes vital and is the most advanced form of military collaboration in today's date. The third key feature is collaboration with like-minded regional and global partners. The bottom line is that India and the United States have always considered each other like-minded, being two democracies. Malabar is a major naval exercise where both India and US take part along with Japan and Australia. It is conducted annually to enhance cooperation, interoperability and complex maritime operations in the Indo-Pacific region. Another crucial point of cooperation will be defense industry. It comes at a time when India is making a push for self-reliance in defense, with India's defense exports having surged dramatically, growing 34 times over the last decade to reach an estimated 23,622 crores in the fiscal year 2025. The United States is the largest defense producer in the world, with its arms exports accounting for approximately 43% of the global market. The major defense contractors in the world, Lockheed Martin, RTX Corporation, Boeing, and General Dynamics, are all in the United States. One flagship project is the planned joint production of the GE F414 turbofan engines in India for future Tejas Mark II jets under nearly total transfer of technology. The agreement also targets faster technology transfer, stronger defense supply chains, and broader industry to industry collaboration across both nations. This industrial tie-up is viewed not just as commerce but as a strategic move to bolster India's defense manufacturing and the US's Indo-Pacific presence amidst rising regional tensions. Another important area will be science and tech cooperation, and while specifics of this are not clear, any form of technological transfer between the two countries will be key in shaping the future of this defense partnership. Despite all the perception, projects like the joint production of the GE F414 engines for India's Tejas Mk2 jets underline this change in Indo-US defense partnership. All eyes will now be on how it formalizes further. Let's take a reaction and a perspective from Major General G.G. Dwivedi, Global and Strategic Defense Expert, who is joining us on the program. General Dwivedi, appreciate you being here, sir. Well, at the starting of the monologue, I spoke about how the Americans at one point in time thought of India as the aggressor. They wanted to intimidate us, they wanted to attack us, and we surely know, sir, what Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon thought of India, especially the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Well, now there has been tons and tons of water that has flown under the bridge. We find ourselves at a precipice where the Americans want to do not only business with India, but they also in fact identify with India as being a pivotal democracy. And thanks to China and its aggression all around the world, that this has become to fruition.
Oh, well, Vineet, firstly, always a pleasure to be on your show. And you have given a very detailed background covering last about 5.5 decades. And when you are talking about enterprise and the marine battalions in the Bay of Bengal, well, my memories get refreshed because I happened to fight the war as second lieutenant in 1971. So, yeah, absolutely, you are right that since last about 5.5 decades, well, there have been total, I would say, transformational shift between the India and US relations, especially when it comes to the defense cooperation. And this process, when it started sometime 2 decades back, when I think there was a shift in the American strategy towards Indo-Pacific, and thereon you see in the last about 2.5 decades, a number of agreements were signed between US and India, like the Lamoa Logistic Agreement, BECA, then the information sharing, and also the like Comcasa. So as it is, the process was on, and in last since 2008 till 2025, India has either purchased or negotiated the purchases of arms and equipment almost to the tune of 18 to 20 billion dollars. So the point is, this process was actually set into motion since about 2008. But this agreement per se, I think, gives further momentum, further strategic clarity, and definite timelines, goals, and objectives. And I am sure this is a blueprint in the next decade to come. It will actually serve three purposes. Firstly, consolidate on what we already achieved. Further, give impetus to certain agreements like GE F414 engine you talked about for Tejas Mark II. Even our previous agreement on GE F404 for Tejas Mark I also actually is on slow track, and I am sure these sort of things will also get further momentum. And very important point is on our training. In fact, when I was the General Officer Commanding, we had been training with the US Army in jungle warfare. I was in the Northeast, but our training also has escalated, and the interoperability between the two armed forces had gained further impetus. And the exercises you mentioned, like Yudh Abhyas, Vajra Prahar, the COPE, or the Air Force exercise, Malabar, all these show that there's further tactical and operational understanding between the two armed forces. So if I can just summarize in three key areas, first and foremost, it is strategic convergence, which largely addresses the strategic goals in the region. Second is the technology, which is very important, and there are two agreements on technology, critical technology sharing. And third is the industrial co-production, because we are no more in the buyer-seller relationship. We are the co-development and co-designing coming together. So all I can say is that this agreement has come very timely. It's going to give further clarity and further momentum to the defense cooperation that is already in progress between the two countries. Vineet.
Right. So you made a very important point, and in fact, it's been critical to India's defense infrastructure and ecosystem as well. And predominantly, it had to do with the issue of technology transfer. If you talk about Dassault, if you talk about the Rafales, if you talk about the Sukhois, technology transfer has always been a bane that has put India leaps and bounds behind its enemies. Do you think that this talk and this promise of technology transfer could be, a subtle point in this agreement, but it means a lot for us?
Yeah, absolutely, because Vineet, in the defense production, technology is the cutting edge. In fact, when we signed the agreement last year on the GE F414 engines, it was agreed that 80% of the technology will be transferred. Now, there are always certain hitches and glitches because no original, creator of technology want to give the whole technology. But the point is, once you get 80%, then you also do your own bit of heavy lifting and further progress on that. And the second point is, we need to also address our own ecosystem. Right at the moment, India's contribution of GDP to the R&D is barely 0.67%. I think we need to address that dimension as well. We need to allocate greater resources in our technology development. And one very important point is, when you go in for technology, you do leapfrogging. So we need to leapfrog. We don't have to actually reinvent the wheel. Wherever we find we can leapfrog on technology, that should be done. And the last point is, we have to create an ecosystem, what you talked of. Ecosystem means we have to bring number of domains together. We have to bring R&D together. We have to bring our academic institution together. We have to bring our industry together. Industry is actually major player, because you rightly mentioned that in America it is Lockheed Martin, it is the Boeing, it is the GE. All those are private players. So therefore, we have to incentivize our Indian private players, our Indian industry. And as it is, the steps have been taken in the right direction, like we are developing MCA, and that number of private players are going to be in. I think these are all right, indications,
Right,
but
sir.
we need to consolidate upon them, Vineet.
Jal Dwivedi, always a pleasure, sir, to listen to you and hear your perspective on these crucial matters. Thank you so much, sir. All right, on that note, we're dipping into a short break. Be right back.